Coming up, Democrat Governor Gavin Newsom lies to defend his reputation. The LA Mayor seems to be filled with joy when speaking about the LA fires. Biden NSA Director sees no problem with the Afghanistan withdrawal, and Democrat legacy media are off the reservation as normal.
I don't know what he's referring to when he talks about the Delta smelt in reservoirs. The reservoirs are completely full of the state reservoirs here in Southern California. That mis and disinformation, I don't think, advantages or aids any of us. Responding to Donald Trump's insults, we would spend another month. I'm very familiar with them, every elected official that he disagrees with.
California Governor Gavin Newsom lies about the status of the reservoirs. He knows all too well that the Palisades Reservoir, which holds up to 117 million gallons, was empty at the time of the fire. He claims that all reservoirs were completely full, except the critical one in the location where there was the most devastation. An empty reservoir at the location of the most fire damage. Coincidence? I don't think so. Newsom plays the typical Democrat trick of referring to factual but inconvenient information as mis- or disinformation. He continues.
And that's exactly what triggered my desire to get the investigation, to understand what was happening with that local reservoir. That was not a state system reservoir, which the president-elect was referring to as it relates to the Delta and somehow connecting the Delta smelt to this fire, which is inexcusable because it's inaccurate, also incomprehensible to anyone that understands water policy in the state.
If you enjoy this content, please like, share and subscribe. And if you want to help this channel at an early stage, you can buy me a cup of coffee. Newsom goes on with his Trump derangement syndrome. With Trump not even in office, Newsom tries to apportion some of the blame to Trump, once again distancing himself from the empty reservoir. I guess somehow water isn't water, and the water that the state doesn't use is somehow special water. This guy demonstrates what is the worst with some politicians: the lack of accountability and responsibility. Then Justine Bateman lays out fundamental truths.
I'm pretty pissed, and I think a lot of people in Los Angeles are pissed. If you are going to run a city or run a state, you have to take care of the basics, and that's make sure that your fire and your police department are well funded. Make sure that you have, not only you have plans if there are emergencies in your area, you have rehearsed them, but also you have plans to mitigate the problems that you know are going to happen in that area. And for us, it's fire, earthquake, rain, and consequent mudslides. And if you're not doing everything you can to take care of those problems if they arise, then get out. You are useless to us.
Bateman says she is pretty pissed. Those in authority have a responsibility to the fundamentals. She lays out what the fundamentals are and states that if the authorities are unable to do what is required to address those potential fundamental problems, then they need to get out. They are useless. Could not argue more, except they aren't useless. They are in fact worse than useless, as they form an impediment to good policy. And then we have the LA Mayor.
Angelenos, we're still going through it. And to any of you and all of you that have experienced a loss, the grief, the anger, the just utter shock, I've seen the devastation. It is unbelievable the amount of loss that people have experienced. But we have to get through this crisis, and I know that we will. I was at the Silmar command post today, and I saw the work of our first responders and how they've been able to defeat the fires in certain areas. We know we still have much more to go, and we know the winds are going to kick up again. But we got to stick together. We got to stand strong.
LA Mayor Karen Bass, having come out of Africa to once again attempt to do her job, seems unexplainably joyful when it comes to addressing the unfolding tragedy. She displays none of the gravitas and empathy with those suffering significant loss, which is the least that should be expected of elected officials. I know this well. I was elected to a House of Representatives seat shortly prior to the 2004 Boxing Day tsunami. My electorate had a small Sri Lankan community, and I joined them in an event to raise funds for Sri Lanka and express sorrow for all of those who had suffered. It was my job to express solemn solidarity and empathy with my hurting community, not to present as smiling, joyful and upbeat. Utterly inappropriate on her part, as were her unwillingness to answer questions from the media as soon as she was able. And then we have National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan.
And where across the globe could you point and say the United States is safer because of what we did here?
Well, I'd start by saying our alliances are stronger than we found them 4 years ago. They're stronger than they've been in decades. NATO is more powerful, purposeful, and bigger. Our alliances in the Asia-Pacific are at all-time highs. And our adversaries and competitors are weaker across the board. Russia's weaker, Iran's weaker, China is weaker. And all the while, we kept America out of war. So I think the American people are safer, and the country is better off than we were 4 years ago.
Sullivan is kidding himself, and he's trying to gaslight his audience. The world is a powder keg, in large part due to his and other Biden administration personnel. They effectively green-lighted the Russia-Ukraine war, which has pushed the world much closer to a nuclear tripwire. Does he think that is a success because it brought NATO closer together? And then you have the Middle East, where Biden allowed tens of billions of dollars to flow into Iran, which gave a significant base for Hamas in particular, but also Hezbollah and the Houthis. The entire region is now also on edge, and Sullivan has the audacity to say that he thinks this all demonstrates a huge success on the international stage. And then we come to Afghanistan.
I also believe that the strategic call President Biden made, looking back 3 years, history has judged well and will continue to judge well from the point of view that if we were still in Afghanistan today, Americans would be fighting and dying. Russia would have more leverage over us. We would be less able to respond to the major strategic challenges we face.
He talks about the Afghanistan withdrawal as being a strategic success for Biden, except that it was Trump that had set up the strategy. What Biden, Sullivan, and others in the Biden administration had to deal with was the tactical situation. He is strangely silent on that, simply because it was an absolute disaster for the US, which reduced the United States' status around the world and further encouraged the Russians as far as Ukraine was concerned. Clearly, Sullivan views the Biden administration's foreign policy as deserving of an A. In reality, I wish there was a G rating, as that is all they would deserve. So it will have to be left as far as an F is concerned. Then we have the typical left legacy media views, represented by painful CNN talking head Jim Acosta. Great voice, but not much of a brain.
He's complaining about the Biden administration, yelling at them to say, get some of this COVID misinformation off their platforms. I mean, isn't that's sort of what the White House should be doing, right? I mean, tell folks to get this garbage off these platforms if you can, as best as you can.
Acosta clearly doesn't believe in freedom of speech. he believes that government should dictate what social media allows and insists is taken down. No First Amendment protection for Acosta. Stalin would be so proud. I guess Acosta was fine with much of the COVID nonsense that was pushed by the Biden administration and others because it accorded with his beliefs. Never mind that much of it was so much blatant nonsense. I have no doubt, however, that Acosta would squeal like a stuck pig if it was the Trump administration that was telling his Lordship Acosta what he wasn't allowed to say. In fact, no guess required. He did squeal like a stuck pig when his White House pass was revoked by the Trump administration. And then we come to Don Lemon.
The only way you're going to get along with people is if you try to talk to them and meet them. Yes, that is true most of the time. That is not true as it relates to Donald Trump. That is not true. Donald Trump is a singular, different kind of figure. No morals, no values, no allegiances, except for himself.
Don Lemon had a rant about Barack Obama and Donald Trump having civil discourse at Jimmy Carter's funeral. Lemon doesn't believe in any civil discourse when it comes to Trump, as the great Don Lemon has made the moral and ethical judgment of Trump for you. Does Lemon not think that there are those that just see him as a blatant self-seeking opportunist? After all, look at the way that he treated Elon Musk after Elon Musk gave him an opportunity after Lemon was unceremoniously fired by CNN. This is so typical of the left. They simply don't want to have to interact with those outside their echo chamber. Then we have Melania Trump speaking about her relationship with the public, the media, and Donald Trump.
Feel that people didn't accept me, maybe they didn't understand me the way maybe they do now, and I didn't have much support. Maybe some people, they see me as just a wife of the president, but I'm standing on my own 2 feet, independent. I have my own thoughts. I have my own yes and no. I don't always agree what my husband is saying or doing, and that's okay.
Are you able to tell him when you disagree?
I gave him my advice, and sometimes he listens, sometimes he doesn't, and that's okay.
Melania Trump says she thinks that people accept her now. It also seems that she and Donald Trump have a healthy relationship where they can agree and disagree as they wish. She comes across as elegant and as a nice person, and what the media did to her during Trump's first term was reprehensible. What do you think about the way Democrats, politicians and those in the media are behaving? Please let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.